Hey folks, good morning and welcome to another episode of Steelers Morning Rush. I'm Alan Saunders. It is Wednesday, October 2nd. The Pittsburgh Steelers will have their first practice for their Week 5 game against the Dallas Cowboys today at UPMC Marine Sports Complex on the south side. I'll be there with practice video coming to you here on the YouTube channel a little bit later, maybe some interviews from the locker room, and then another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive with myself and Zachary Smith coming up around 6 o'clock. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube channel, and make sure you don't miss anything. Really thank you for all the comments and recommendations for future episodes we got on yesterday's episode where I broke down the Steelers spot drop cover 3 defense and how the Colts picked it apart. I really have a lot of fun doing those, but I understand that most of you, more of you anyway, are going to want to talk about the day-to-day of what's going on with the team and that. So I'll try to keep that kind of deep dive explanation to about once a week. Today, though, I want to talk about something that's kind of been going around the Steelers universe in the last 24 hours, since once again it was brought up that the Steelers are in the market for a wide receiver, and now Davante Adams from the Las Vegas Raiders looks like he is on the market. Unlike Brandon Ayuk, when he was being dangled by the San Francisco 49ers, it seems like there's a possibility that Davante Adams could be traded as a pure rental. Now, Davante Adams has 2 years left in his contract, but those 2 years are monopoly money. He is scheduled to make $36.25 million in each of the next 2 seasons, but none of that money is guaranteed, and no one, not the Raiders or anybody else, is actually going to pay it to him. Now, an acquiring team could trade for Davante Adams and then redo his contract, right? They could get those numbers to something more reasonable, introduce some guarantees to make Adams happy and go forward, or they could just get him for the rest of 2024 and then cut him, and they would owe him nothing more after that. So whether or not you feel good about doing the first part is sort of up in the air unless the Raiders give teams permission. Teams can't talk to Adams about an extension or reworking of his contract before the trade goes down. They may do that. In fact, it was reported by Jonathan Jones of CBS Sports on Tuesday that he expects that they'll have to do that in order to find a robust trade market for Adams. But if they don't, or if the Steelers and Adams can't work out a deal ahead of time, I still think it's worth it for the Steelers to trade for Davante Adams just as a pure rental. And I expressed that opinion on Afternoon Drive yesterday with myself and Zachary Smith, and a lot of people saying, well, Alan, that doesn't make any sense. You are saying the Steelers are not Super Bowl contenders, or not realistic Super Bowl contenders, even with Davante Adams. Why would you trade draft pick for a rental? And so I feel like I need to explain percentages, I guess. So look, right now, the Steelers have plus 5,000 odds to win the Super Bowl. That is an implied odds of 1.96%. So basically, the Steelers have a 2% chance of winning the Super Bowl. There are about 15 teams with better Super Bowl odds than the Steelers, maybe 14. There's a whole bunch right in the same strain as them. The Steelers' Super Bowl odds have gone up since the start of the season. So they've gotten shorter. That they're in a better shape than they were on September 1st. But this is not a team that even with one wide receiver is not going to move those numbers that much, right? They're not going to be a team that has more than a 5 or a 10% chance to win the Super Bowl right now, even with Davante Adams. And that's not I don't think you can't honestly call that a true contender. If we're being honest about who the true contenders are, the true contenders are still going to be the teams at the top. It's still going to be Kansas City, San Francisco, the Ravens, the Bills, the Lions, the Eagles, the Texans, the Dallas Cowboys. Like, the Steelers are not getting into that group. Even if they beat the Cowboys, they're not getting into that group, mostly because the Cowboys have an easier pass to the Super Bowl by coming out of the NFC. Throw the Green Bay Packers in there maybe if you want. The Cincinnati Bengals, even though they're losing, like they're a much more talented team. So you can't say that Davante Adams would make the Steelers a Super Bowl contender, but it would significantly increase the Steelers' chances of doing a bunch of other things along the way, like winning a playoff game, which they've sort of set out as their goal for this season. And I just think fans have this sort of all or nothing mentality. It's like, oh, well, if we're not really a Super Bowl contender, what's the point of spending a future draft pick? Well, I mean, that future third-round pick probably wasn't going to make the Steelers a Super Bowl contender either. As long as Patrick Mahomes exists, the Steelers are going to be in trouble in terms of winning a Super Bowl. Like, that's just the facts of the matter. You know, like, if you waited until a move would really make a team a Super Bowl contender, you might wait 30 years between making moves. Like, there's no guarantee that that's coming this year, next year, or anytime soon. It doesn't make any sense. Like, if the player is worth that value, and I think he is, I think a third round pick is worth, right now it would be 14 weeks of a fairly cheap, that only owe him $13 million, Davante Adams. He was the 15th receiver in the league last year in receiving yards. You're getting a top 15 wide receiver for $13 million in a third round draft pick? Okay, that's not bad. I mean, that's not bad. Most receivers of that ability are going to cost a little bit more than that, but you're going to pay a little bit less cash and a little bit of draft capital. And it gives you them the opportunity, if things go well, if they like having him, to possibly extend his contract moving forward beyond 2024 or redo his contract, whatever. Same. So it's basically an extension, because that what's sitting right there is just nonsense. So it does not, like, it makes sense to try to win football games, whether or not a team is truly a contender. And it makes sense for a couple of reasons. Getting into the playoffs reveals things about your team that not getting in the playoffs does not reveal. Playing in competitive games down the stretch of a season reveals things about your team that being out of it by Thanksgiving does not reveal. Putting talented players with other talented players reveals things about your own talented players that not having those players does not reveal. And it helps the team move forward. Nobody wants to play for a team that finishes 4-13. Now, a team that finishes 13-4, even if they don't win a Super Bowl, that's a very attractive destination all of a sudden. Steelers are generally an attractive destination anyway. They're a long-standing, stable organization. They have a good head coach. Those are the things that people care about. But, like, yeah, winning helps. Winning helps. Winning helps more than losing. I understand that there's this positive negative correlation where, like, the teams that lose get better draft picks, and fans will say, like, oh, that's better. Like, why would you rather be 10-7 and win one playoff game, or would you rather be 0-17 and get that first overall pick? But, like, that's not the way it works in the real world. In order to get to 0-17, all the players that you're going to need to play well to win a future Super Bowl have to be playing poorly. Like, that's worse for the team. This all or nothing. It's not all or nothing. Like, if you're a sports team and you have a 2% chance, you got to bet on it, because it's not like there's lots of teams with less than 2% chance. Like, that's just the way the world works. You cannot just wait for a good bet as a sports franchise, because it may never come. And so I think it's a good move to acquire someone like Davante Adams, even if it's a pure rental. And I'd be fine with Cortland Sutton or Darius Slayton or DeAndre Hopkins or any other number of these guys that we've talked about. The Steelers offense is unable to really execute a game plan, certainly specific ones, with its lack of talent at the wide receiver position. It's a problem. They should fix it. They should have fixed it in March. And by the way, if they had fixed it in March, no one would be talking about, oh my gosh, I can't believe they traded a third-round pick for Davante Adams. No, they'd just be happy that the Steelers had Davante Adams. But I'm not gonna, like, I have a lot of respect for a lot of people. I'm not gonna be like, oh my God, the Steelers had Davante Adams either. Yeah, that's not me either. I'm just gonna tell you how it is. He's a good player. The Steelers should want him. He's better than what they have. Trading for him would be helpful. It's not gonna make them a Super Bowl contender, not a true one anyway, and that's okay. They should do it anyway. That's all I got for today. Like I said, back with practice videos in a little bit, and then afternoon drive with me and Smitty at 6 o'clock. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, enjoy.